fake, Trump is fake, Melania's a dude, Joe Rogan's a bitch, Eddie Bravo sucks, chemtrails are fake. If you believe in chemtrails, you're a fake enabling fool. Nobody died at Sandy Hook, nobody died at Aurora, nobody died at Littleton, nobody died at 9/11, nobody died at any of the terrorist attacks like Bataclan, nobody died at Thousand Oaks, nobody died in Vegas. None of those gay people died at the disco shooting in Orlando. There's no evidence for any of your religious saviors to actually exist. There are no prophecies. There is no end times prophecy. Global warming's a hoax. There's no space junk. There's no satellites. The space station is fake. And like I said earlier, your reality is fake as fuck. All right, thanks for joining. This is really the third stream on this topic of Nipsey Hussle's death hoax. The first one I uploaded about 6 days ago, and we pointed out the immediate things that were revealed by the way they rolled out the script, the obvious product placement, the subtext, the names of the characters, and we followed on through a couple days later with the more overt Masonic symbolism, the retelling of the Christ death and this myth of this Christ savior type figure, a Messiah, a 33-year-old Messiah. And of course, we looked into this fake CPR. That video is getting a bit of traction because people who know what it looks like when you actually have an emergency situation are able to look at these events and see right through them. And they hope that they can blind you with emotions so you don't see through these things. That's their MO. That's why they put crisis actors out in front of you right before anything else. You know, before you've even had an investigation, you have somebody with tears telling you the story. So let's just go over some more things that stand out surrounding this situation. And then we're going to consolidate everything we found thus far into a single documentary presentation. So here you have victory lap. So it means he's already won. He's 33. His album's been highly acclaimed, and he's hanging out with Jay-Z at a party, and Jay-Z is wearing a shirt that has John Lennon. So right there you have already some resonance with the idea of a death faker, somebody staging a death. There's a lot about John Lennon and around his death and the situation there that looks more like a publicity stunt than the real thing, much like what we're seeing here. And so, in my view, this actually looks like a hint being dropped, and there were many of those. Okay, I also want to show you some Masonic hand signs, just so you can see that what you think of as gang signs, well, they are gang signs, but they're more ancient. They have a longer history than Crips and the Bloods. So there you have Christopher Columbus, you have Adolf Hitler, and then here you have Nipsey doing the same gesture. And of course, it has a new association today, but I'm saying common origin. Also wanted to point something out. Whenever you have a psychological operation being run, and the public is meant to believe it, they don't like conspiracy theories, because conspiracy theories compete for attention and they want to control your interpretation. I mean, they really aim to control your reality, so they need you to believe these things. So what they present you with are fake conspiracies. They often leak at the same time that the story breaks out, so anybody suggesting it wasn't as presented can be derided. They could be called, well, in this case, you're just being called insensitive. So, no, Jay-Z did not create a $15 million trust fund. Fake story, fake news, but it was just being used to shame conspiracy theorists. Kind of like George Bush, after 9/11, said, "Let us not tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories." You know, I'm thinking, who's he to tell me, what we should and shouldn't think? Okay, I wanted to show you something else, because there's a lot of Christ iconography here. So there's the Sacred Heart of Christ, a common symbol, opening up the shirt like Superman. Has the same meaning, I believe. And then Nipsey doing the same thing. Again, we're just doing a character analysis, is what you might call this. The Sacred Heart is often shown with the cross superimposed and that is just another version of the Globus Cruciger Christ or cross-bearing orb, the orb and the cross. I'm just pointing out the iconography and the symbolism. He has 31 tattoos, which may mean something. It may mean something, considering, he died on the 31st, 31. You see a lot of symbolism with many of these things. Okay, so this is a profile shot. We're looking at his tattoos. Let's see, Eric Catherine has joined us, says, "What's up, IPS? It's all staged." Oh, absolutely. And what we're doing here is we're analyzing the presentation, basically film critique. We're looking at the propaganda and we're trying to determine, well, what are they trying to convey? And we've covered most of this in the first video and the second video. And in this one, we're analyzing the character as he's been presented. So there's the world. Now here's a scene. This is like after, I guess, right after he was shot, where to me it just looks very unusual. We're supposed to believe somebody just got shot here. This is a crime scene. And these people are just walking all over it. Did they do a forensic analysis of the trajectory of the bullets? Did they determine who was shot by, which particular shot? Did they block off the scene? I mean, were there chalk outlines? Where was the blood? I mean, to me, I'm just saying, it doesn't look like anything's being investigated here. It looks like a record release party. And then I see TMC, the marathon. It looks like product placement. And I've seen a couple of these individuals wearing Google t-shirts. Very unusual. I thought they were into the marathon and TMC. I didn't know they were into Google. D'Angelo says, the body in the fire truck was too big. Yeah, you're the second person today to point that out. And that first video I did on this topic has really, I think it brought in about 600 comments so far, and many of these comments are very useful. Stuff I wouldn't have noticed. This is crowdsourced intel. I wanted to show you some Masonic handshakes. These are technically called grips. Because what I'm trying to do here is illustrate that when you're talking about secret societies and street gangs, they're fundamentally no different. They're really not. A gang is a gang. But there is some overlap, and it's worth noting. So here is again, this is the Victory Lap release party with Jay-Z attending, and here they are doing one of their grips. Now, again, Jay-Z is wearing a shirt with John Lennon, which is very interesting. Amber Payne says, "I'm glad you did this. My boyfriend thinks he's dead." Hey, look, it's a corporate PR stunt. It's an industry hoax. It's designed to create a martyr, and it's also designed to help grow the police state. So ignorance comes with a price. There's a reason why he was going to go meet with the chief of police. Like, you really think he's like a white hat on your side for the people? Give me a break. The police are all brainwashed, and their objective is really just to enforce the power of state, which already is too powerful. So here we have Nipsey wearing a Tupac shirt. Again, Tupac, another likely, I think it's almost certain, industry hoax. Continue. This is another scene from the party. It's like they never get tired of shaking each other's hands. It looks like a damn lodge meeting. The blue hats, the blue shirts, everybody doing their little grips. Either faked his death or was set up. No, there's more here than just an assassin. They called it an assassination. Are you kidding me? Why did the chief of police call it an assassination? That's a very specific term. And you're right, the shooter left and he came back. And look, even before they caught the guy, there were people hanging around. If somebody's shooting people up, are you going to go run over there? Oh, what do you mean there's a mass murder? Let me go over there. Somebody gets killed, they die in a pool of their own blood and vomit. Oh, let me go to the scene where the guy expired and light some candles. Like, this doesn't happen in real life in this way. This is totally staged. So nobody died, nobody got hurt. This is all designed to get your attention. And if you need another clue here, you know who's representing Eric Holder, whose name is very fishy, by the way. Look up Eric Holder and his role in gun control and his statements about brainwashing people. I mean, this guy is a totalitarian, working with Obama as the DOJ's head. And now you have a shooter who has the same name. It's not a coincidence. But moreover, that shooter is going to be represented by O.J. Simpson's lawyer. You're telling me that this isn't a made for TV movie? Nobody important says, since when does a convict who got caught on camera murdering someone get a bond? Yeah, there are many questions, and we're going to bring up all these questions. All of them. Okay, I'm looking at his tattoos. I mean, you always have the very flagrant gang signs, which just looks like, if you have a look at, let me just show you for an example. For those of you who aren't familiar with what I mean. So he's wearing the jewel. These guys are making their hand signs. And no, that's not Chaz Bono on the right. I was wrong about it. Okay, so I want to show you a typical lodge meeting and just compare it to what you're looking at right now. Here you have all these gentlemen just sitting around making their signs. I mean, it's pretty much what you're looking at is a cult, which is a nice way of putting it. Okay, so it's not even the same person says be real. Eric Holder, the guy locked up, and the guy in the Instagram picture is not the same person. Doesn't surprise me. And we're looking for these inconsistencies. Okay, let's see what else we have. We're looking at his tattoos as well, because it tells a story. And so we're reading the script here. So he has a tattoo that says, "World is mine." He has another one that says, "God will rise." He has crosses on his hands, a couple pentagram stars. God willing with a tattoo. He has his clothing line TMC, which you see all over the place at his supposed death scene. God Got Me One says, the demeanor of the shooter. Interesting. Okay, so this is a comment from God Got Me One. The demeanor of the shooter in court doesn't match his actions at the scene. His last album called Victory Lap, and like I said earlier, if you missed it, at the Victory Lap party, Jay-Z's hanging out with him, and he's wearing a John Lennon t-shirt. Okay, now take a look at this. We're talking about iconography and symbolism, how they've connected him to Jesus Christ. So here you're looking at an image of Jesus Christ, very common image, where he's looking up with the crown of thorns. So there's Jesus, 33, about to make his exit. And now here you have Nipsey Christ, about to make an exit. Iconography is very important. Propaganda and its influence on the public mind. A lot of it is based on archetypes, things that your specific culture will resonate with, things that your religion will resonate with. And so, they're showing you pretty much who they want you to associate this character with. And there are some other associations. Jesus is a peacemaker, he's a pacifist, he's a healer. And he gets too good at it, too good at peacemaking, too good at healing, so they take him out. So here you have Nipsey threatening Big Pharma, talking to some guy about curing AIDS and cancer and veganism and living better. And then he's bringing the gangs together, and he's going to meet with the chief of police to bring the Crips and the Bloods. So he's a peacemaker, he's a healer, he's giving money to the poor, he's opening science centers, he's an entrepreneur. So basically what you have here is a hero of the people who then gets murdered for it. And he gets wounded in the torso and the head. I think the torso wound is the one that finished him. I want to find out. It would be like the spear of the Roman soldier, the last jab. Remember where he says something, and then anyway, there's a story here, and that's what we're unraveling at the minute here. Yeah, you're right. Nobody important. Good call. Eric Holder the guy who paid up, yeah, he gave the Sandy Hook payouts. He was the guy behind Operation Fast and Furious, where they were sending a bunch of weapons into Mexico and then using that to say, hey, America, your Second Amendment is causing death to the South. And that's what they really did do that, and he was behind it. I'm like, that's pretty messed up. You're just gonna arm these gangs down there, these cartels, and then when they do their thing, you're gonna blame Americans for their gun rights. But that's the kind of manipulation we're looking at. That's propaganda for you. Again, symbolism, color, royalty, purple. You have these logos are all worth looking at. We all know this about logos. Now, I'm not really too sure about Dr. Sebi. Like, I'm not really familiar with his work, but I'm just looking at iconography and how these stories are rolled out. And so, in terms of him being this Christ martyr figure being rolled out, I kind of see this Dr. Sebi as something of a John the Baptist. And John the Baptist has special significance in Freemasonry, which is also worth noting. Let's see. I'm looking at your comments. I'm also going to go through my previous video and check out your comments there, and we're going to check it all out. Okay, Dereal209 says, if Eric Holder gets acquitted, then we all know it's a setup. He has paid off. All hell's going to break loose. They'll burn the city down. Well, listen, if that happens, rest assured that the people during the burnings are working for LAPD. It's not going to be organic. People don't really do that. I mean, people get pissed. They may riot, but the ones who actually do the property damage that brings about the reaction from the state, that's always agitated from within the police. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that's in the script. And that's why I said the story's not over. The reason why I'm still following this thing is they handed this Eric Holder character over to O.J. Simpson's attorney, and that was another made-for-TV fake news, pseudo-news event. And that's exactly what they're playing on the public right now with this. I want to show you this. This is one of the crisis actresses. I mean, look, so we're supposed to believe she's a huge Nipsey fan? Like, she's really into Nipsey Hussle, right? Um, and yet, she's wearing a Google t-shirt. I'm sorry, but I don't think that somebody who's into what Nipsey Hussle was supposed to represent would be wearing a Google shirt. I saw someone else wearing a NASA shirt. I mean, give me a break. And this is the lady who couldn't really give any tears, and then she threw a fit afterwards, and she said, "Can we please do it again?" No, it was already recorded. Oh yeah, this is an interesting one. Laura London, his wife, her biggest movie, ATL, released March 31st, 2006. And there's something with the follow-up to that that's going to be significant, I believe. Okay, so Cheetah Bob says, where's Nipsey at now? Probably the Honduras. There's going to be some hints here. They're going to leave hints. What does the Google shirt have to do with anything? Well, I'm just looking at these individuals. When you look at crisis actors, you often see people who aren't really wearing what they would normally wear, but they're playing roles. This woman was doing method acting. You saw her talking about her past with him. Their stories didn't make a lot of sense. This one right here, the second woman from the left, couldn't. She said he did so much for the community, and the reporter said, "Well, what did he do?" And she said she couldn't remember. Like, I guarantee if you went up to any of these individuals and you said, "What was your favorite Nipsey Hussle song?" Not a one of them could identify a song or an album. It was so fake. But we'll continue. Okay, here's another still shot. Again, this is supposed to be a crime scene. We don't know for a fact that there was only this one shooter and that one getaway. Look, we don't know all the story. So how do you know that there aren't more people around with guns waiting to shoot people? I mean, this should still be a closed crime scene. The police should be blocking this off. And yet here you have evidence that's just been trampled all over with way too many, it looks like wine bottles and votive candles. Okay, so again, I'm looking at these individuals. NASA sure. Do they look organic? Do they look real? In my estimation, no. No blood on the ground. Well, that's the thing. It's supposed to be a crime scene. Was there even a crime van here? Did they check where the bullets went? How many rounds were fired? Did they find it all? I don't think so. Let's continue. Didn't see a lot of panning shots in the footage, which suggests that they were grouped together as we often seen with these events. Okay, here's something else. Some lyrics from a Nipsey song. He says, "This is the remedy, the separation, Tupac of my generation. Blue pill in the matrix, red rose on the gray pavement." I'm posting it below. Sanford James says, "Dead wrong. Let the man rest. Respect his wife and kids." No, how about you respect the public who are being hit with psychological operations that show that the government controls the media? They're brainwashing the kids. They're brainwashing people so they can take away your rights. How about you show some respect for the people who are being deceived instead of this con artist, this Illuminati sellouts BS? Give me a break. This was a TMZ made for TV movie. Drama, just like the OJ case. And they're going to bring that attorney into this? Give me a break. Kenneth H. says the video TMZ released doesn't have the time nor date. Every surveillance video keeps the time and date. Yeah, I didn't think it looked like surveillance video. What good is surveillance video if it's grainy? You got a surveillance camera, you want to see what's going down out in your property, and you look at it and it's all blurry. What was a camera from 2002? Was that a flip phone? That was not a security camera. I'd want my money back. And also, while we're at it, Mr. Brenton, whatever, the guy from the New Zealand shooting, needs to get his money back for that GoPro lens. That was the most grainy GoPro lens I've ever seen. And they always do this with these psyops. Whenever there's a psyop, the footage that you do get is grainy at best, if they give you anything. And I mean, take for example, Thousand Oaks. Look at that footage. Nobody's in it. Let's continue. No shells on the floor from the gun, alleged crime scene, Clarence Joseph says. Well, in one of the still shots, you actually have a shell and you have one of his hats perfectly angled so you can see the brand and the name. I mean, product placement at his death scene. Give me a break. April Gatewood says the lawyer took the case pro bono. Yeah, I mean, how much sense does that make? Interesting. D'Angelo, he grew the beard to make him look black. Yeah, I've heard people suggesting that these are just characters. They're playing roles. There's a video of Nipsey hanging out with Tupac, says Looney Tunes. I would like to see that. Yeah, please, anything you think that we need to include in the documentary presentation, just drop it, because that's what we're doing here. We're going over everything that we can. This guy says, "Bro, white dude, shut up. Please, you're making me lose brain cells." You misspelled cells. I must have caused you to lose quite a few. You don't know that these people, this is an industry hoax. Look, and if you think it's real, then you don't have any brain cells to spare. This thing was so phony, so fake. Look it up. Look up Nipsey Hussle fake CPR. It's laughable. This is keeping up with the crisis actors. This is just really bad TV, and we're dissecting it. This is government propaganda being presented to you through pop culture medium, so you trust it and you think it's real because you guys don't trust Fox, you don't trust CNN, you don't trust any alternative. So they give you your news on TMZ and you believe it. TMZ is government controlled. It's BS propaganda. Let's continue. And I'm going to go through the comments on my other video on this because people, like I said, had made a lot of very valid points. We have another video on this one, on the same topic. Okay, let's see. I'm going through comments. Okay, let me go through my previous video on it because some of the things that people are putting in here are worth reading aloud. There were some good leads on here, some interesting observations. Somebody saying, "Where did he go?" Who knows? Where was he before? Made a lot of, in my estimation, he's probably in the Honduras. And that's just based on some comments that I've received, which we're going to go through right now. We're going to go through the comments. Ooh, yeah, here's something. Cassidy05 says, type in aerial view of Marathon store. Nipsey store is in between two pyramids on the top of the building. Yeah, please get me that. Okay, let's look at these comments here. And I'll sort by the newest one cuz look, I got 900 comments on this video. Yeah, this is psychological warfare. That's what you would call it. And then whenever there's one of these events, remember, it's always advancing something. So in my view, more than likely, this is being used to grow the police state. It has something to do with gang violence. He's going to go meet with the chief of police. It's always problem, reaction, solution. Okay, let's see. And also, any of you who think that I'm crazy or that this is crazy, remember, less than a month ago, Jussie Smollett got lynched by a couple of Donald Trump voters. People were outraged. Then a day later, they found out it was fake. So if you're a true believer in whatever the news tells you, they can trigger you into believing some crazy stuff, some atrocity propaganda, and they will get you to react emotionally, or even who knows how they get you to react. But my point is, there's nothing wrong with questioning these presentations they give us, and this one is fake as hell, so we're just dissecting it. Geo next door says, OMG, bro, please stop spreading this rumor. You're making his name bad. It's not a rumor. You know, if you're going to fake your death, hire hire some better actors. Learn how to fake tears. Hire better crisis actors. I'm not going to feel bad for seeing through these theatrics. We know how these things work. Okay, so this guy says, I'm still waiting on the funeral. I heard nothing yet. Yeah, that's a good question there. When's the funeral? I know they're having that thing at Staples. Okay. This guy says you're just another punk making money. No, you know what? That's BS. What I do is I take apart all of these events. Parkland, Sandy Hook, Aurora, any of the terror attacks, Thousand Oaks, Las Vegas. We go through all of them. New Zealand. So, no, this has nothing to do with any particular demographic. But it's interesting to note that they censored the hell out of New Zealand. You can't even talk about that. And this one is being promoted. You can search this, you can see this all over TMZ, you can see it on YouTube, but you can't see the New Zealand shooting, and they actually censored the internet in Australia over it. That one is about censorship. Okay, let's continue. I'm looking through comments here to see if anybody has come up with anything new today. Oh, yeah, bringing the gangs together was one of the stories, which is laughable. It's going to be a closed casket, go figure. Doesn't surprise me. Jonathan Tate says, whatever you're smoking, give me some, dude. Hey, the ones who believe what they hear on MSM are the ones who are actually smoking something. You know, we're actually ahead of the curve. We're analyzing propaganda real time and not believing it. You know, you're the one drinking the Kool-Aid. We're not smoking anything. Just because you see it on TV doesn't mean it's real. When are you going to learn this? So, you know the government's not your friend. What makes you think the media is your friend since the media is 100% controlled by the government? And we have proof. Every one of these psyops from 9/11 on down is evidence of this. And most of the conspiracy theorists out there who treat these stories as real are just extensions of the mainstream media. You know, they spread out. They knew that media was going to fragment as a result of the internet, so they have their agents everywhere to spread various versions of mainstream stories so that nobody questions whether it actually happened or not. And this didn't happen. It's a fake event. Staged death. Keep dropping comments if you have anything in here about the event, any leads you want me to look into, please. Yeah, thanks, Tracy. In New Zealand, you can't even watch Live Leak because of one of these events. And so you let these things go by and you don't question it. They do advance various agendas. You're going to let them censor the internet over some propaganda that's not even real? I mean, there's no damn blood. There are so many things about the scene that we already analyzed. Right now, I'm just kind of crowdsourcing for tips. We found pretty much everything we need to complete a documentary. Eric says it's definitely fake death. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're looking at what's nothing more than an industry hoax. 9/11 was a hoax. 17 years of school shootings, hoaxes, hoaxes, hoaxes. And there's an agenda behind all of it, obviously. Yeah, that's right. One lady called him Nippy, and she was a close friend. The close friends were all actresses, and they didn't, like I said, you could have asked any of them, what's your favorite, Nipsey lyric, and they wouldn't have known. Yeah, the grandma also said something about forgiving Holder. She didn't cry. And you know what his last tweet was 3 minutes before he was shot? 3 minutes before he was fake shot, he tweeted, "Blessed are they who have strong enemies." That's another Christ like love thy neighbor statement. Yeah, and I do question whether what we saw on TMZ is actually from a security camera. And I wonder why it went to TMZ and not the police. The Truth Seeker Concrete Rose says they are traumatizing us. Well, that's the idea. If you believe these things are real, like, okay, take for example how they call you a paranoid conspiracy theorist if you don't believe the mainstream news. Well, what if you find out that the mainstream news exaggerates the threats in every possible way? Then you could make the case that the people who buy into the news are the paranoid ones, not us. And I refuse to be terrorized by this. No, you can ask any questions. The only people who are being deleted are people who are being rude. Iceberg Wilson said direct energy weapons in a drone demolished the Twin Towers. No, that's a government misinformation line. Like I said, they have a lot of conspiracy theorists already out there to give people alternative explanations for things so they don't question the main thing. So, no, the direct energy weapon is a misinformation line. There weren't any planes. CGI compositing, 16-second delay, easy to prove. Class initial says Agenda 21, exactly. And what you're talking about there in a word is totalitarianism. Black car, no, look, we're talking about the censorship of the internet in Australia and New Zealand, which is all predicated on this video leaking, and the video is all fake. There are multiple videos from that thing in New Zealand, and video number two is 100% fake. You have a guy face down on the ground who gets up and walks around. Meme says, I know someone who flew to LA and witnessed him deceased. No, you're lying. Whenever there's a psychological operation, you get a lot of these anonymous trolls who claim that they witnessed it. No, they're usually lying. This is just like the Jussie Smollett hoax, except he got away with it, kind of. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Burton says the whole event was a hoax. If you believe it, you're crazy. Yeah, if you believe it, then TMZ is curating your reality. You live in a tabloid world. I don't. No thanks. I don't need to live in your tabloid fake matrix. I don't support TMZ or any of that garbage. And look, they're fabricating these events because they control your minds by getting you to believe these things. Yeah, the last tweet he posted. Oh, that's interesting. Thank you. Mr. Evans says the last tweet he posted was sent out before he died, but posted an hour after he passed. Now, that's weird. Very suspect. Anyway, just the content of that tweet. A little too scripted. Okay, commenter says first you said Tupac was fake, then you said Michael Jackson's death was fake, then Prince's death was fake. Yes, yes, yes. These are not like extraordinary claims. We can back it all up. Council of Nice Ears says a technocratic totalitarian state in progress. Exactly. Paid for Life says where is he? Well, he's somewhere obviously well taken care of. I mean, he's a sellout to the system. And look, if you believe he really died, then you were sold a false Christ Messiah. You were sold into this character, and you're given a new idol to worship. Yeah, Prince did fake his death. That was obvious. I mean, these people are such narcissists. They have to be so dramatic when they leave. I'm going through the comments here to see. It isn't illegal to fake your death in some states. Yeah, what about Nevada? I mean, the guy. I mean, can you? I've heard about that. But again, it's really not necessarily even faking his own death. This is just a TV presentation, and it's not necessarily even a crime because it's just like it's not illegal to tell a lie, you know. And if you believe it, it's on you. Enlightened Chap says, "Are Masons Christian?" I would say it's the other way around. I mean, really, um, all roads lead to Rome is one way of putting it. But as far as are Masons Christians, kind of. But their Christ is it's a death or dying and resurrecting character, Hiram Abiff, Masonic Christ. But when you're initiated, they have a very straightforward system where it's 3 degrees and you relive this Hiram Abiff and then you die and you're resurrected. So death and resurrection is a huge part of this thing. But I'm going through the comments to see if there's anything else here we need to look into. Love says, "What the heck did I miss?" We're just going through a lot of pictures, a lot of comments, and a lot of things that stand out with regards to this Nipsey Hussle character and his staged death event. Bobito Chacon says, "You are a CIA agent exposed." Interesting. What exposed me? I'm reading your comments, everyone. If you have anything else, okay, here we go. This is what I was looking for. Tony Blaylock says the journalist is an actress as well, Amy Powell. So if you remember, the journalist who was talking to the crisis actresses, and she looked like she just woke up, and she looked like she wasn't paying attention. She had a notebook, like a spiral notebook, and there was no name. They always have a name of the journalist in the news channel. It was just like it looked like a thrift store microphone. Like everything was just super low budget. She didn't look like she knew what she was doing, and she kept touching her ear. Does this thing work? Does this thing work? I don't even think she had an earpiece in. Anyway, someone identified her as Amy Powell. Okay, someone here says, this is Edgar Howard says, "I watched the interviews. There was something strange about the news of his death and everything surrounding it. Everyone talked as if he was a god. Why did they keep mentioning he was like a god and there was no one like him? His whole career, that seems manufactured." Yeah, that was one of the comments. You heard multiple people saying nobody could do what he did. Another one said, "He's like a god. He's not just a rapper, he's a god." Thank you. Mr. Mystery says, "They control the media. They put what they want you to believe in the news." Well, look, they mix fiction and reality all the time. They blur the lines on purpose. They prepare you for fake news by flooding your imagination with things in the culture, in the movies, and the video games. So when you see something extraordinary on the news, you think it's real life, when it's really far from real life. And you wouldn't even consider it to be a possibility if you hadn't been immersed in a hyper mediated environment where you're constantly surrounded by this stuff. So when you see these things in the news, it's just confirmation bias. You're like, oh, another day, another school shooting, confirmation bias, and you believe it. When the truth is, another day, another fake school shooting, and your confirmation bias is confirming a fake reality. Like the good news is, the news isn't as bad as you've been told. Council of Nice Ears says this week is London Marathon, Lauren London Marathon Store predictive programming. Yeah, that certainly stands out. That certainly does stand out, and it's worth following. Now, if you're on my channel, you need to go watch the first video we talked about this topic on, and the second video, the follow-up. Okay, let's see. I'm looking at the headlines. Okay, here's one for you. Take a look at the screen here. This would be Rick Ross, who had a Nipsey Hussle tattoo made in memory of his friend. And here he is wearing his 33 on his jersey in black and white. Like these are not coincidences. This is symbolism. And the thing about symbolism, and this guy, it's no secret that he's a Mason. The thing about symbolism is they know that you're not able to understand it. When you get initiated into the Masons, they put a hood over your head. You're called hoodwinked. When you swear the oath, you're saying, I used to wander in the darkness, and now I want to be shown the light. So you're shown the light. They take your blindfold off, and you're told the secrets. And the people outside of the lodge don't know what those secrets are, and you keep them from hearing what the meaning of the secrets are. And so Rick Ross and these people are communicating above your head with these hand signs and these numbers and these psychological operations where it gives them a power trip because they do have power because you're not in the know. That's what the term hoodwinked actually comes from. I mean, when they pulled him into the ambulance, he had one sock on, one off. That's how you're brought into the Masonic Lodge. They take off one of your shoes. Taiwan Crawford says the Jesus beard also. Oh, yeah, there's a whole lot of iconography connecting with Christ, not just the age, or the healing thing, or the love thy enemy thing, the peacemaking thing, the going up against the big pharma. I mean, there's so many elements here where this is myth making. Myth making. It's a foundational myth. They're creating an archive. Oh, look, just Lola Jackson says, no blood on the gurney, one shoe missing, no blood at the scene, big girl crying, no tears, everybody close to the crime scene, no name or interview of the two that were shot, no name of the woman who drove the getaway car. That's all valid. These are all valid points to be looked into. Another question, the video is terrible. Shouldn't it be HD quality? It's 2019. Good point. Like again, as I said earlier, you're going to have security camera on your property, on your store, and this is one of these smart stores, wasn't it? I mean, this was a store that you would expect to have better than grainy cell phone footage level security cameras. Super grainy. So were there any non-actors at the scene? That's a good question. My thinking is no, or possibly, but maybe on the fringe. We've seen this before, like with Vegas Strong, you have a group of crisis actors mixing in. And one of the reasons why they may even wear certain things is to be like this is how secret societies function. It's almost like one of those flash mobs. But everybody knows, okay, well the guys with the wristbands or like the Boston Hoaxathon, if you watch the Boston Marathon bombing closely, you can see people with hoodies, people with certain hats, and these are people you see maneuvering around the scene, key individuals. So yeah, we're looking at an operation played out right in front of your faces. And one thing to also keep in mind with any of these staged events, the media is not being fooled. It's not like they fake a shooting or they fake a terror attack and then the media records it and they're fooled like us, like we're all tricked. No, they're part of what creates the thing. The media doesn't report, they create the stories. Its purpose is not to inform you, it's to conform you. Very simple. So it's important not to believe these things without a burden of proof, and we do not have that. Kay Lee says, you're 100% correct, straight hoax. The masses are dumb to not see it. Mag Fan says, I agree, it's the cheapest crap I've seen in my life. Truly Blessed said, the address is 3420 of the marathon, which means murder. Interesting, I hadn't heard that. 3420. Eric Catherine says it's a small store with 1970 security cameras. Yeah, that's what I mean. A smart store with 1970 security cameras. So that footage we got from TMZ was meant for you to be seen. Yeah, check and see. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a posting for crisis actors. They're a little more circumspect about it now than they used to be. Eric White says the Illuminati can't even be called a conspiracy anymore. It's right in the open in our faces, but the world's in a trance and the truth is so hard to accept, but the symbolism is everywhere, done by all of the elite and famous. Once you see it, you can't miss it. It's everywhere. Yeah, very good point. Queen Solo says, where's the blood splatter on the white cars? Where's the blood on the clothes and on the ground? I don't see any. Cushley Lord says, OJ prosecutor as lawyer. This has to be a CIA psyop. Yeah, no doubt. And it's also a made for TV production. This is meant to get people's attention. It's meant to hold and fixate your attention, and then they can highlight the issues that they want you to feel strongly about so they can nudge you to vote a certain way. So you know this is going to do something about growing the police. He was going to go meet with the chief of police on Saturday or on that Sunday. Like, what are the chances that you're going to meet the chief of police to talk about gang violence and you get killed by a gang member? Like, this is story time. Story time. Yeah, thanks, Spoon Bread. I brought that up earlier. Eric Holder, the shooter, has the same name as Eric Holder, the gun grabber. Mr. Brainwash the Youth, Mr. Sandy Hook. I mean, this guy's behind all this stuff. These gun grabbing commies in high places. And here's what they also do here. When they recruit crisis actors or they recruit people to engage in these operations, these people are activists. They're not recruiting Trump voters to do gun grabbing drills or gun grabbing psyops. They're getting people who agree with the outcome. If you look into the background of the people who participate in these events, many times they're even anti gun activists. Dion Deck says the footage from the gas station across the street per TMZ. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Why was that even leaked? And why were there people covering the scene? I thought this was a crime scene. People were all over the place. I don't think there hadn't been enough time to investigate it. Was there even a crime scene van? Did they do ballistics? Somebody says no bullet casings on the ground. There were. There was a shot where you had some dirty EMT equipment on the ground, a black hat, you could see the TMC logo, and then a shell. I mean, it was just perfect product placement. And I don't know if it's standard or not, but I rarely see real EMTs in real life leaving biohazardous waste all over the ground to be photographed by the media. They don't do that. Talk to any person who works as an EMT who's worked around in paramedics. Hey, do you guys leave bloody rags on the ground after a scene? The answer is no. And the reason why they don't is that is biohazardous waste, and that would carry a heavy price tag because bloodborne pathogens. But you constantly see it at these events because they are staging it to convey a certain story. It's all about the product placement, it's about the props, it's about the art direction. Stephanie says it's fake and cheap. Poetic Kel says pay attention to the numbers. Yes, absolutely. No one died, no one cried. That's accurate. No blood, no blood. Someone talked about the thing being a dummy, and I saw that. This guy, Terrence Freeman, says the Nipsey Hussle shooting was a hoax and the dummy laying on the ground that they were giving CPR to, if you noticed. Um, oh, yeah, that's right. If you look at the video on that, it's clearly a dummy, but then they replace it with him, I think. I mean, it's hard to tell. It's such bad footage. Now, one thing that stands out, though, is when they wheel him out on the gurney. You already have everybody in place. You have the yellow tape there. They have to lift the yellow tape so they can wheel him out. And then he's obscured by a black Suburban, and they go around to the front of the fire truck. And the guys pushing the gurney are wearing yellow raincoats and hard hats, which looks ridiculous. And one of the guys forgot his hard hat, and he's trying to do chest compressions while they're moving. I mean, he looks like he's having an epileptic fit. It doesn't look like CPR. It's so phony. Like, that's not even the question here. Was it fake? We're actually analyzing what is the intention, where is it leading, and then we're looking at the subtext. Most of it having to do with creating Christ, martyr, peace bringer, healer, pacifist, love thy enemies type at the last minute who's about to bring peace and is about to cure AIDS and cancer, and then bam, he gets taken out because he's challenging the powers that be. I mean, it's a good story. Pluto says, quit trying to make a check off a dead man's life, you goof. No, what's actually happening here is you have a staged event that's being used to manipulate the masses, and I'm not going to not call it out. If you want to believe what you're told by the MSM, then you're going to live in a pseudo reality. You're going to be more paranoid, and you're going to be easy to trigger like a sheep. Whenever they want to trigger you, the shepherds will give you a sign, and then you will follow them to wherever they want you to go. whether it's giving up your guns or paying more to the environmentalists or whatever it happens to be. But in every instance, it involves growing the state at your expense. So, calling out the fake media, the fake stories by the government controlled media, the government entertainment media complex, calling it out is the least we should be doing. These things aren't real, it's a hoax. Let's continue. I'm going through a lot of these comments. If it's a stage, where is he? I don't know. No blood anywhere, says one commenter. If he was shot in the head, there's no way he could have lifted his head at the end of the video. There's no blood coming from on his white shirt. Did he fake his death to make more money since he owns his labels and owns the master in publishing? You know, these things are going to be multifaceted, and the way they're going to benefit is going to be, well, it's going to depend. I mean, he's faking his death, sure, but there's probably something good at the other end of this. But he's willingly participating in a psyop that involves the police. Think about that too. It's not like he faked his death and tricked the cops and tricked the media and tricked all these people around him. That's not what happened. This is it's like a theatrical production. It's a propaganda film that's presented to the news as real. And it does involve an interaction, an agreement, connections between the police and the media. So that should be worrying to you at a minimum, because you're talking about corruption. I mean, serious corruption, where the news media has been hijacked. If it was ever a free press in the first place, and I would like somebody to give me just one example of where we've actually had a free press anywhere in human history that you know of. This is the closest thing to a reformation we're ever going to have, and they're already trying to clamp down on it. Have to be careful what we show on the screen. Lady Truth says firefighters had on white gloves. This was a Masonic ritual. Yeah, this is what we're looking for. Just little things that people notice. Divine World Order, thanks for doing the video. Check out my numerology. I don't focus a whole lot on numerology. Ooh, interesting. Young black entrepreneur says his grandmother said he called after being shot in the head. I heard that. I thought that was a mistake. You're the second person to point that out. Okay, so we're going to have to look into that. Also, in one of the stories, they described the IV, he had the oxygen, and they were wheeling him over to the ambulance. And then you look at the video, where's the IV? Where's the oxygen? It's not there. Abstract Shepherd says Freemasons control gangs and government agencies. Second Outlaw says Dr. Sebi is a sellout. He used this. Yeah, could be. Could be. I don't trust any of the characters that they present. Lionel Perez says we need 10,000 people to get together who are in the know. I'm glad you bring that up. There is an event coming up in Las Vegas on May 25th. If someone wants to post a link. It's an Exit the Matrix Expo, and somebody is going to do a presentation on fake celebrity deaths. Among other, it's like 10 different speakers, but that's one of the events. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens if you get a large number of people together, both there physically and people watching online, and what happens when people talk about certain things without it being filtered by the MSM priesthood. J.R. Filthy says just because it's staged didn't mean he didn't die. Yeah, that would be a false flag. And look, and I've been studying these things for a long time, and I used to always think, okay, well, obviously it's a false flag because none of it ever adds up. But the thing to keep in mind is, if it's fake, it has completely different implications. If it's fake, if he didn't die, it means that this does show you that the government works through the media, that it controls all of it, that this is integrated, that this wasn't a hoax that a small group of people pulled off and tricked everybody. It means that this is integrated, so it's definitely a psyop. Who knows who runs this thing, who staged it? But I'm saying here, they will often say these were false flags, so they can still fight over who done it. And that's the wrong answer. So, for example, if 9/11 was a false flag, as Alex Jones would say, well, then the left can fight versus the right all day long over whose fault it was. Oh, it was blowback because of right-wing militants. No, it was because the left wing is too tolerant. Everybody's fighting over who done it. Yet we should be asking, did it even happen or was it totally staged? And then they spread these divisive conspiracies so people never come to a resolution. The fact is, he didn't die. Okay, here's another one. Cassidy says store was located at 33 West Slauson Avenue. Yeah, I noticed on a video, I saw that address and I took a screen capture of it. I didn't know his store was right there. Why would he fake his death, says Tammy George? Because he's a sellout and his death was being used to advance the growth of the police state, to give more power to the police, to do something about gangs, which means more snitching. It means more infiltration. It means more state breaking up people, organic communities. I mean, what we're really seeing here is Big Brother encroaching by using these martyrs and saying, well, he died for a cause to bring us together, so let's give them more power. Let's propagandize these people now against guns. There are many reasons. He's a sellout. It's about the money and power, and it's about growing the power of the state, and he's sacrificing his persona for the cause, which is what you do when you get initiated into the Masons anyway. You know, you die as an ignorant outsider, profane, and then you're reborn as one of the enlightened. You've been brought to the light. And you see it in a lot of the symbolism and even his tattoos. And the dying and resurrection Savior, Christ, when they use Christ symbolism, it's not really like Jesus Christ. It's more like Hiram Abiff, the Masonic Christ. But it means that, yeah, F you to all you believers, because they're basically doing that. They're giving you a big middle finger saying, screw you, I'm going to go with the big government brainwashing program and serve it. So why are you going to make an idol out of somebody who participated in a psychological warfare operation? What is the proper way to describe it? The reason why they make these things into atrocities is so they can get you to respond emotionally, so they can manipulate you. You all know about emotional manipulators. You know, they shed fake tears, get you to do something if you're someone who caves into emotional pressure. That's exactly what they're doing. MVP says nobody died, nobody cried, Nipsey death, fake AF. Agreed. Kelly B says just because he's listed on the death register doesn't mean it's true. No, it doesn't. And look how many people are missing from the death registry after many mass shootings and events. Try to find any evidence of 26 deaths in Sandy Hook, or try to find a spike of 3,000 on 9/11 for that matter. Like, you wouldn't believe, if you're brand new to recognizing how bad the news has been your entire life. You have no idea how much they've lied to you, how much they've exaggerated the death counts. There's a story on NPR you can look up called "The School Shootings That Weren't," where you find out that there were more than 200 school shootings that were reported that made the crime statistics that didn't actually happen. And it was uncovered by NPR. They were looking into it. They started calling around and they were finding school shooting after school shooting or school shooting event were non-events, misreported. Exposing a Lie says Freemasonry uses fake death as rituals all the time. Yeah, anybody think that John Lennon faked his death? I think it's very interesting that at his Victory Lap record release party, he's hanging out with Jay-Z and Jay-Z's wearing a John Lennon hat. News with Attitude says the 33rd parallel is a circle of latitude that is 33 degrees and a lot of Masonic landmarks are found there. Yeah, like Dealey Plaza and let's see. Keep dropping these comments. Missy says, and the way the person ran away was hilarious, like a bad Hollywood movie scene. I agree. Next commenter. Well, yeah, this was fake like the Boston bombing, and I did see, yeah, the Boston bombing was a comedy. It was terrible. My favorite scene was when Carlos Rendondos is wheeling the guy out and he's got the cowboy hat on and the prosthetic leg falls off. They put it back on. And then you see him squeezing the femoral artery with his index finger and his pinky. You know, the big fat gushing artery from the severed leg. And he's just pinching it like a balloon and no blood's coming out. Jason Schaffner says government's up to something. This shooting's a distraction. Well, no, the distraction is the point. obviously, because as long as they keep people believing in what's being presented on the news, they have your mind, and that's all they need. And they need it 24/7, and they want to make sure that you're getting your source, your information from their approved sources. Did a Machiavelli. Exactly. And look, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to compare this to many similar fake death events. Oh, yeah, good one. MVP. Crisis actor wearing a Prince symbol, another death faker. And there was something that connected to the Prince thing worth bringing up. Like, yeah, Prince apparently came back and showed up as his own sister at his funeral. I mean, that was some bad prosthetics, a really bad wig, very horrible performance, no tears. Or maybe there were tears, but I mean, he was so far back behind that mask, they couldn't get out. So the Prince thing, though, was followed up with this event, kind of strange, but like afterwards, there was this Green Day concert in Madrid where some guy in a like an acrobat doing some type of a stunt in a elevator being lowered down to the stage fell and plunged to his death during the song Purple Rain. So it was some weird, bizarre Prince tribute where some guy actually died. I mean, I don't know if you saw that. It looked fake. The king says, "Do you think that these people are really dead?" Well, look, I don't think that everyone's in the know about this. I mean, obviously, it'd be on a need to know basis, but if you were someone who was initiated into their little society, you would know the symbols. I mean, that's what we're doing. Why was he wearing red all the time if he's in the crypt? Oh, yeah, that's right. The color. Well, that might be a good point to bring up as well. Okay, so I've seen a picture of him where I mean, he looked like he was at some type of movie or some kind of like red carpet event, but he was wearing purple, which is red and blue combined. You always see him in red, and then he says or this whole event brought together the Crips and the Bloods, red and blue, purple, and that's what you're talking about when you talk about mind control. You're talking about this Hegelian dialectic, where they provide you with these polarizations, these opposites, and they use a catalyzing event to bring the two events together or the two sides together. So they bring the gangs together through this event. But the real purpose, of course, is growing the police, growing the surveillance state. I mean, it's really about state power, all these things. Interesting. Commenter says, it's not illegal to fake your death. In the Illuminati, it's just part of the subscription. Well, I made this point earlier that initiation into Freemasonry does mean you fake your death. You just do it inside the ritual chamber. Your third degree Mason, they throw you in a coffin and they resurrect you. And so your old self died, and then you're being remade better. And when you are resurrected, you're playing the part of the dying and resurrecting god Osiris, or who's in their play he's called Horus. Michael Matthews says Nipsey's your cousin. I don't know if I believe you. This happens a lot. I used to have a lot of people say, don't say anything about 9/11 because I know somebody who died. I'm like, well, what's the name? And 9 out of 10 times I wouldn't get a name. And the few times that I did, the name didn't match up with the database, and you can just search it. Exposing the Lie said the ambulance and the fire trucks had the number 66 on them. Dreams and Vision says order out of chaos. Exactly. Exactly. Order out of chaos. That's the Hegelian dialectic. Their order that they impose in the chaos they provide. Cash Brown says they have something they call the Red Lodge. Interesting. Well, yeah, Blue Lodge is the first 3 degrees. Yeah, colors are very significant. The numbers are very significant. The hand signs, the grips. We went over much of that earlier. Lisa Gunt, Crips Democrat, Bloods Republican. Yeah, red and the blue. Reminds me, yeah, I've kind of seen this before, and I'm like, well, this is what we're talking about. Controlled oppositions, Hegelian dialectic. They control both sides. To the Kingdom says they don't color bang in LA anymore. You have to understand gang politics. Hats are more important than colors. Okay. Okay, Cash Brown says they showed that ritual in the movie Black Panther, the burial and rebirth. I haven't seen it, but I'll have to look. I often like watching some of these mainstream productions to see what people are being prepared for. Because as I was saying earlier, they use the government controlled culture, as in government entertainment media complex, to prepare you in your mind by immersing you in these things, whatever it is they want to present you with later. They prepare you for it with the culture. So when they show it to you on the news, you think it's real. They present you with something extraordinary that wouldn't happen in real life, but it's all you know from your lived experience, most of it being vicarious and hypermediated, so you're susceptible to it. Same thing with the sciences. They use a lot of science fiction, they use a lot of science in movies, and they represent things in a certain way so that when they present it to you in the news with fake science, you think it's real. Sean McClendon says it's pretty interesting that he passed away the same night Duke Blue Devils lost. Commenter says if he isn't dead, why are they having a funeral this Friday? Well, what we're suggesting here is that it's a staged event. Not only suggesting, but Jason Schnaufner says he had Masonic checker flags on his neck. It's not a funeral, it's a memorial. Correct. The CPR was not only a total joke, but pretty eye-opening about how low budget this thing must have been. Yeah, please like, share, subscribe. And here's why you want to subscribe. This is the third video we've done on this topic. And what we're going to do next is we're going to release a documentary. I'm going to try to keep it concise, 45 minutes to the point, organized into sections, making the point of why we know it's a hoax, what its purpose is, and anything else that we find relevant about the subtext, the surrounding news, and everything else around it. And it's something I would like to have complete by today. Sooner the better. One of the things you have to keep in mind is when they run these events, the reason why they do them is to agitate you, to get you to act immediately. That's why there's a school shooting and 5 minutes later the parents, who haven't even seen the kids yet, are at the camera saying, vote for gun control, vote for gun control. They need to push you through right away while your emotions are still right, while you're still triggered. You're still scared, you're angry, whatever it happens to be, while there's still a buzz. That's when they're going to push things through. So the sooner you expose these things, the better. Jason Schaffner says the gangs are run by CIA feds and the rest of the alphabet boys. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Curtis Oliver says they can shove gun violence down our throats enough, preparing for more gun control. Remember Eric Holder. Look, when I heard this thing, when I heard the shooter's name, immediately I was like, okay, nice. Nice little inside joke there. Eric Holder is really, I think he's the mastermind behind the school shooting generation concept, 17 years of scripted events. And he was the one who said that they're going to have to make this an issue so they can constantly brainwash people against guns. Prodigy from Mobb Deep had an album named Hegelian Dialectic. Well, that's what you're witnessing here, and that's what we're looking at. If they can distract you so you don't even talk about it, like, oh, we can't talk about it because somebody's feelings are going to get hurt, because the crisis actors might cry a real tear. If they can bully you or guilt trip you into not seeing what's in front of your eyes, then you've been conquered. Then the media tells you what to think, or the people who it's programmed are telling you what to think, which is almost even worse. There's no reason why people should be believing what is being presented by TMZ, thinking it has no agenda. It's not just entertainment. It never has been. Science fiction has never just been, oh, to entertain people. No, science fiction has always been there to prepare you for government science that would be used in some way to make the case for reducing the human population, locking you down in smart cities, reducing your carbon footprints, depriving you of the things that would allow you to actually, as a civilization, move, expand, raise your standard of living. These people want to reverse the Industrial Revolution, the environmentalists. And how do they do it? Well, they get people to believe in things through government controlled science. They get you to believe in climate change, they get you to believe in carbon footprints, and it's all baloney, but you wouldn't buy it if it wasn't for being flooded with the stuff in the culture, in the fake news, in the movies. And it's the same thing with all the shooting violence, they exaggerate it. So you can bet that there's a purpose to this thing that has to do somehow with shifting the balance of power. True Blue says, "Where's the proof? You have no proof." Watch part one and part two, but more importantly, the burden of proof isn't on me or on you. If you're watching the news, you're under no obligation to believe it. They have to provide the evidence since they're making the extraordinary claims. And if you've studied any of these events and you've seen that these aren't just anomalies, you have to recognize that this is part of a protracted long-term strategy. This event is connected to every other fake event because what they've done is they've created a version of reality that the news claims is the real one. And if you don't agree with it, you're a conspiracy theorist. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is deconstruction of agitprop, a very specific type of propaganda used by the government to control the sheeple. And I'm not a sheep. Tyrone L says, "How did the shooter retain and afford the lawyer so quickly?" Valid question. Kind of tells us, especially since it's OJ's attorney, that they're probably going to use this to create a made-for-TV drama that's going to drag on and on. All the celebrities are going to tweet about it. We're going to hear about it on all the news networks. This is how they get you immersed in their fake reality, and then they get you triggerable. They get you to move in certain directions. It's all about crowd control. Brother Lynch Hung 69 said, "I'm from Scaneless and King Rob News showed us all the players involved and how it went down crazy." Yeah, post a link. Anybody else who's doing research on this, I'm going through your videos because I think we need to put down something definitive in the next day. Philip Fraser said, "Never seen the Alphabet Boys raid a Masonic Lodge." Actually, look up Masonic Lodge and street gangs. Just do a web search. You'll find articles. And there was something big that happened recently. I talked about it in my previous video. Dr. Green, no, Dia Green says what you're saying is fake. No, what TMZ is showing you is fake. What the crisis actors are telling you is false witness. I mean, you don't have to believe those lies. And I'm not asserting anything. I'm just not believing things that are being asserted. There's a huge difference. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm just not a blind faith believer in propaganda, and I know it when I see it. Council of Nice Ear says, "Check out Army Field Manual 33-1, PSYOPs." Yep, that's the word. Timothy Ryan says, "Money will be made from this hoax. No doubt. Nipsey is hanging out with OJ in Club 33 at Disneyland," somebody said. Yeah, we're looking at sellouts. I mean, look, this isn't the first time we've seen these things. That's why we're able to pick them apart so fast. And you can see, look, I've got 1,000 comments in this video in a couple of days. And the people who are commenting are very well aware. Like, people are not fooled by this BS. They sure know how to start people up getting OJ's ex-lawyer. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. This thing is all about triggering people. It's about getting a response. It's about getting you to turn your eyes away from whatever you're normally watching and to watch them. The MSM has been so fragmented that they don't have a monopoly over curating your reality like they want to, like they used to have. And the way they're getting it back is they're taking over YouTube. They're saying that certain content is too fringy. We need to get rid of it. So they're trying to push us off. They're censoring some of these alternative sites like BitChute and LiveLeak because they don't want people to start talking and to start connecting the dots about how fake the MSM is and how, if you really want to know what your mainstream news is, it's the state church. And even if you don't pay attention to it, it still affects you because everybody else does. And if 99% of the people believe that the next terror attack is real, then the war that follows will be real. And if they have people's brains so saturated with garbage propaganda that they're able to fake an alien invasion, they'll land a UFO, in several cities, and people will believe it. And then those of us who have level heads, who know how to think, will say, well, that's fake. That's CGI. That's AVR. That's a crisis actor. That's baloney. And then the MSM will call us crazy because there are so many of the believers out there that the truth no longer matters because the lie is just going to drown us out. Enlightened Crap said, "Did you see the naked statue of Trump with the Masonic ring in public?" No, and if I saw a naked statue of Trump, I wouldn't have looked that closely. I would have turned around. Timothy Ryan says, "Divide and conquer, bread and circus." 100%. 100%. And what's more divisive than race? What's more divisive than topics of inner city violence or terrorism or anything having to do with polarizing left versus right or things that center around very specific things like guns or free speech? And they've been winning. The powers that be have been winning lately. Think about it. Less than a month ago, really, in less than a month, they've managed to actually silence LiveLeak and BitChute and several other sites. David Ritter says TMZ is operated by the CIA. That's why they were able to leak the video and have it first, which by law they would be questioned as to how they got it so early. No doubt. No doubt. It's like, why is some tabloid site able to air this thing and they don't get taken down? And yet, if you have even a copy of the fake manifesto of that shooter in that other event, you can be charged with a crime and you can't show the video. They will shut down your website. Curtis Oliver says Tupac Hoax Revealed is the channel that shows. Oh, yes, I've seen that channel. Nipsey's in his house chilling watching this. Yeah, he's probably in the comments telling me I'm crazy. Man of the Year says Rodney King beating and the dudes that beat up the truck driver in the LA riots were both hoaxes. These were fake psyops coded with the number 33. Interesting. Tammy George says TMZ is always the first one to report major news. Well, it's a fact. It's not conjecture. It's a fact that the CIA controls the mainstream media. They have oversight. They can put the brakes on anything. They can push anything to the front. If they want something to go viral, it goes viral. Not because it's organic and we care. When you see something sick or depraved or something against the family that's going viral, chances are people don't really want to look at it. But it's being forced, memed out there by the culture shapers, the culture engineers, your reality curators. And if I wasn't booted off of Facebook for violating TOS, I would boycott Facebook. Watch This TV says, "Are you saying that people from the neighborhood who saw him dying on the ground are lying?" Absolutely. Actually, I wouldn't use the word lying. I would use the word acting. They're called crisis actors. And they were crisis acting, and they're really bad at it. I've been keeping up with the crisis actors for years, and these are some of the worst. Notice the quality of the video was 360p. Yeah, that really stood out. Somebody says culture vulture. No, that's not correct. If you look at what we've been doing for the last 2 years that I've had this channel, which, I mean, this is a new version of it. What I've been doing, what we've been doing is taking apart real-time staged psychological operations, agitprop, dissecting it, taking it apart, and analyzing it. This isn't culture vulture. This isn't about this person. We cover every one of these events. There is not an event that's happened in the last 5 or 6 years under my watch that I haven't deconstructed. It's not like we're new to this, so give me a break. And call me a culture vulture. We're talking about government-controlled media, government-controlled entertainment. We're trying to break free of that. Continue. Okay, the acting was terrible. The acting was, yeah, absolutely terrible acting. Somebody already identified the actress who is pretending to be the journalist asking all the questions. Frank Bank says, "Is Nipsey alive?" Yeah, absolutely. Jay Filthy says, "How was Rodney faked? You could clearly see him getting beat." Well, you didn't add something there. You could clearly see him getting beat on the video. Anything they can fake in the movies, they can fake in the news. Do you know what squibs are? Squibs. Squibs are, it's kind of like, when you're a kid, you squeeze a ketchup packet and you poke a hole in it and you can squeeze it out. It looks like blood. That's what a squib is. And there are various devices, but they're very sophisticated today. And they can put things in your clothes anywhere, just sticks on you, and then by remote they can press it and blood will shoot out. Like they can fake gunshot wounds to the head real time. Enlightened Chap says, if Masons aren't Christian, why do they abuse the number 33? Well, as far as Masons go, the Bible that they keep is Old Testament. They don't have a New Testament. I don't even think they recognize it. But their central character, the dying and reborn Hiram Abiff, is very much a Christ figure. Kendra Adams says that was fake. Yes, it was. Iceberg Wilson says they're all going underground. They have food, shelter, golf courses. Yeah, don't think they don't have somewhere to go. You're talking about people who are selling out. It must be pretty big. What would it take for you to do the same thing? DJ Stark says Rodney King was fake as well. Good. I'm glad you're all connecting these things. And the thing to keep in mind is these things aren't being faked and then reported by the news who's being tricked. The mainstream media does not get duped. The mainstream media doesn't get lied to. I mean, sure, they get things wrong. But what I mean is, you couldn't stage a shooting and have them report it and talk about it and politicize it. They're part of the story creation, they're part of the process. The sooner you understand that, the better. The state controlled media, the church, it is the state church. Like, you think there's a separation of church and state? No. You do have a worldview that the world government wants you to have. And all you need to do is believe what their priests tell you on that TV screen over there. You got an altar to the New World Order church right there in your house. And all you have to do is believe. I mean, that's how strong it is. You get sucked into these things, and it's not a small deal. You end up believing in radical Islamic terror, well, then you end up voting for war. And that never ends. Let's continue. Eden Dion, why would Lauren cry her eyes out and do this to her kids? That's a good question. You know, some people have pointed out anomalies about people's kids. Like, look at Michael Jackson's kids at their funeral of their father. Was he dead? You have to remember, these people are being paid off. The people who are participating in these events. And you see a lot of what we call duper's delight. One of the things that gives away crisis actors is the lack of any real emotion. You rarely see real tears. I have never seen a crisis actor with a tear. Prove me wrong. We have not, and we've been looking. It's like an ongoing joke. Infinite Plane, what's your view on Miles Mathis? Miles Mathis, I believe, well, actually, I think he gets it right. One of the things Miles Mathis gets it right is it doesn't matter how they get you to believe as long as you believe. So they would rather have you believing that the shooting was real, but it was done by a government black op than what the news tells you. Like, they always want you to believe something just to keep you in their fake pseudo reality with the rules they control. They don't want you to be a non-believer, and that's all we're saying. Why would he fake his death or any celebrity? Well, again, this is a psyop. This has an agenda. This is a fake shooting with a purpose. He was about to meet with the chief of police. They supposedly brought together gangs as a result of this. So this was some type of psyop to get the public ready for, we need to do something about gang violence. Problem, reaction, solution. Problem, gang violence. Culminating in this guy getting killed, and he was about to cure AIDS and cancer, and he said, love thy enemy. This Christ-like figure gets killed at 33, doing the right thing. So they get people immersed in the story, so they're willing to go along with the solution where, oh, if only the LAPD had more power and they had more snitches out there, they could have prevented it. So the end result is they run a drill like this, and the government gets more power, and the people get increasingly brainwashed. And these events never stop giving. I mean, you still have people using Littleton to advance gun control. These are propaganda events. You'd call it atrocity propaganda. And if something's atrocious enough, if it's shocking enough, you can use it to mobilize people. Marcus says, this guy says there's no tear, so it must be a hoax. No, it's not only that. One indication that this is a hoax is the lack of tears. That's just one indication. Duper's Delight's another one. If you haven't studied the topic of crisis actors, you should do yourself a favor and just look it up and see for yourself. It's unbelievable. But once you see it, I mean, haven't you ever had someone try to manipulate you by fake crying? The media does it. It's called emotional manipulation. It works. No, we're keeping all comments. If you have something constructive to say, please comment. If you have noticed anything else that we haven't picked up on, like I said, we've been going through the comments here. We have about 1,000 on one of the videos, and people have been noticing things. They've even identified the name of an actress who is playing the role of a journalist here. Timothy Ryan says, yes, he was a Mason. Yeah, I think it's pretty evident. Beauty Love says, I wonder why they chose him. No, I'm saying that this guy was part of the production of it. Great comment. Bircher says, Princess Diana's death was her children were laughing at the funeral. Yeah, no doubt. Not only was that a hoax, but Princess Diana has been identified as somebody else, and it's another topic. But no doubt, this is some type of like elite joke where all these insiders get a play with our minds. Candy B says his best friend was too calm. Again, lack of empathy. Very peculiar. Fortray says, if he's not dead, where is he going to live? I don't know, India, Honduras. I mean, who knows? Somebody says here, you can't even look up Lauren's parents. Her father is Jewish. Interesting. Enlightened chap, how many ciphers do Masons use in numerology? Good question. Google it. I couldn't give you a specific answer. Nip was a Mason. Keep dropping the comments. Eric Catherine says we have to look at this. Oh, he's living in crisis actor paradise. Could be. Ms. Hill says, do you think this backfired? The government plans for martial law to get involved since no gang violence. Yeah, if this was meant to be a provocation to spark actual gang violence, then yeah. I mean, look, they do this all the time with these events where they try to say there's going to be crisis or there's going to be copycats, is what they call them. Like after the New Zealand event, they put all the mosques on lockdown. Supposedly somebody burned one. Okay, or check this out. Do you remember the Charleston shooting? Well, in the Charleston shooting, with that Dylan Roof, the guy with the bowl haircut, and after he supposedly shot 9 people in a church, the police took him to a Burger King for a Whopper. Like, this is all in the news. And even when they take him out of the cop car, he's got one pant leg rolled up, which again is a Masonic initiation thing. But anyway, after that event, which was totally faked, I mean, Hillary Clinton was there the day before meeting with one of the guys who got killed. The whole thing was fake. But that aside, immediately after, there were reports in the news about churches in the South that were being burned down by the Klan. And so there were like 5 church fires that were reported right after the shooting. And the kid was shown with pictures of the Confederate flag, and they were saying, okay, this is the Klan's rising up again. Well, it turns out that there weren't 5 church burnings. It was fake news. There was a fire in an office trash can. There was a fire in some brush. Lightning hit one church, and that was it. There was one church that actually burned, but on the church that actually burned, the person who had spray painted "Vote Trump" and burned it was actually a parishioner. Bobby says Nipsey was involved with Puff and Jay-Z, plus he was involved with Puma and invested in cryptocurrency. Yeah, as I said, he was hanging out with Jay-Z at his victory lap party, and Jay-Z's wearing a John Lennon shirt. They telegraph this stuff. David Gonzalez says, how is he going to go on Ghost for the rest of his life? Makes no sense. It's easy. The world is huge. Very easy. Keep going. Hugo Pacino says Nip could be on any of hundreds of secret islands, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, really, when did you ever see him anyway, except when he was on a stage or in a music video? Keep going, keep dropping comments. DJ Stark says, if they offered you more money to fake your death than you're making as a rapper, what would you do? Well, to give you an example, after the Parkland event, some friends and I put some ads up claiming to be, we were like, hey, we're starting a crisis actor. Well, it was a crisis actor agency. So if you want to be a crisis actor, and basically what I said in the ad was, if you're willing to lie to the news and sign a non disclosure agreement and fake like you're a victim in a mass shooting, we can use you $50 a day. And I had dozens of people who wanted to be crisis actors for $50 a day willing to lie to the news. So if you got average actors, starving artists willing to lie for 50 bucks on camera and sign a non-disclosure agreement, then maybe it's not that hard. Maybe it doesn't take a whole lot. All right, thank you. A commenter says, Essential Demetria says, check out my Nipsey playlist when you get a chance. Yeah, please post a link. The reason why I hand out the mod status is so you can post links. Somebody says, do I think Tupac's alive as well? I do. In fact, not only do I think Tupac is alive as well, but this guy even called himself this generation's Tupac in a lyric. You can see him wearing a Tupac shirt. Like, yeah, no doubt. And there are some indications that Tupac may not even be who you think he is or what he is. There's a really good article by Miles Mathis, and we may talk about where he actually came from in his real name. I mean, remember, this guy's real name isn't Hustle. Naffy to Prince says, there's a narrative going on where the white guy is toxic masculinity and the black guy is the rapist. Yeah, many narratives that the media puts out there, and you know how they get you to believe it is they throw it in the culture with all the movies and all the TV shows, so then you're inundated with it. So then when they present it to you in fake news or highly selectively curated news written with a bias, you accept it as real. Like I make this point, let's say you ask two people to write a term paper on violence in America, specifically gun violence. If one person only watches the news and the other person is a critical thinker, well, the person who watches the news is going to write about 500 school shootings in 20 years and 7,000 dead and this many wounded and this many lives affected. Whereas the person who's critically examining it will say, our perception of violence has been greatly distorted by agenda driven media and government agitprop, and not so many people died, if any. You'd have completely different reactions. And my point is, the people who are true believers in the state controlled government media live in a fearful place. And it makes them racist, it makes them bigoted. What do you think Jussie Smollett was doing when he faked like he was getting lynched by a couple of Donald Trump voters? He was trying to tell the media who ran with it. Al Sharpton ran with it. They were telling the country America's racist. MAGA hats the new Klanhood. They're going to start lynching people again. Then 24 hours later, you find out the guy faked it and he hired his two trainers, his personal trainers, to help fake it and stage it. So my point is, if that hadn't been exposed as a hoax, the media would still be running stories about how racist America is, and this would turn up, this would actually create animosity. Gloria Daniel says, I knew it was fake. It looked fake. My son had been shot and blood was everywhere. Yeah, lack of blood. We've seen that at a few of these events where you have like even paramedics with white gloves and they don't get any blood on them. And then there was like, oh, check this one out. Thousand Oaks shooting. Look this up. Brendan Kelly, who was shot at Vegas, and then 13 months later was shot at Thousand Oaks. At both places, he supposedly saved lives by giving them tourniquets. So here he is, this former Marine. He's at a country music bar and there's a shooting, and his friend gets shot in the arm, so he says. And he used his belt and his shirt to give the guy a tourniquet and then help the guy escape through the window, which he broke by throwing a bar stool through the window. So it's like this heroic thing. Now, can you imagine putting a tourniquet on somebody's arm? Meaning it's bleeding so hard you got to tie it down with a t shirt and cinch it with your belt. And then he's talking to the news about it. He's shirtless because he used his shirt. He has no belt, not a single speck of blood on the guy. How can you put a tourniquet on an arm that's been hit with an AR-15? It's shattered, it's spurting blood, and you don't get a drop on you. And there's more. I mean, that's a whole separate incident. But if you really want to know if the Vegas event was real or a thousand hoax, it's not hard to discern. I mean, we're talking about 55 of the same people who were shot at in Vegas were shot at again 13 months later at Thousand Hoax. And you don't want to believe those are crisis actors. And what's worse, during the second shooting, during the shooting at Thousand Hoax, down the street, there was a drill being performed with 55 crisis actors of high school age who were reenacting the Vegas shooting. So again, we've been studying these things in depth. We're not fooled by any of this stuff. Okay, Gene says, must keep the races divided. Their biggest fear is for the masses to unite against him. Exactly. They use the Hegelian dialectic to split us up into sides, and then they use provocations to get us to go to war with one another. This is the perpetual war that Orwell wrote about. And so when you look at these events, and instead of saying, who did it, if instead you say, did it even happen? Well, then guess what? You're not going to be lining up to go fight against your neighbor because the media told you that this group represents a threat. I mean, that's the whole point of seeing through this stuff, so they can't get you to act. They can't pull your strings. The media can't trigger me. Yeah, Nikki Love points out the paramedics had white gloves, no latex. Oh, not latex. White gloves, not latex. Hey, good point. And the white glove is a Masonic thing as well. No blood. Charlie says, you're crazy, Nip is dead. Nope, you're crazy for trusting the MSM. Nip is not dead. Keep going. Okay, here we go. Beauty Love says, the dummy didn't have tats on the arm when they put him in the truck. Yeah, someone else pointed that out. And it's hard to tell because the footage is so grainy. And it's intentional. It makes it ambiguous, but it didn't look like the same person. It definitely looked like a dummy. And if you're not familiar with this, look up paramedic training dummies. And you can find not only very realistic ones, but you can find them with facial hair, with attributes like Velcro, even 3D printed faces. If you want to have a Nipsey Hussle doll, you would just take one of your standard training dolls and you would 3D print an actual face. Or you would more likely just fake it with, whatever they have. But come on, how hard is it? Anything they can fake in the movies, they can fake on the news. And there's very little reason to distinguish between Hollywood and the news anymore anyway. DJ Stark says he fooled everyone, even his family. More than likely, the family's in on it. That's the thing. Okay, Kelly B says, why wasn't Nip's head wrapped up when he went into the ambulance? Good question. The dummy was too big, says Garrison. I thought so as well. Oh, good call here. OG Careful says, paramedics should not be moving the spine around. Yeah, one of the first things they do is they set your C-spine. And that didn't happen. Masons in the medical field too, says Lavender. Doesn't surprise me. You've got the caduceus, you got the symbol of Mercury. I mean, you have definitely many of these shooting drills involve mass casualty drills at hospitals. Like, take a look at the Bataclan shooting. Why were there more than 24 hospitals in that region doing drills that same day? Or, like you had all these ambulance companies and hospitals doing mass casualty drills. Council of Nicaea says a very laughable one in the UK of a dummy under a bus during an attack. Yeah, the dummies are very, very easy to spot, and one of the ways they try to get you to not notice it is they move the cameras around really fast. Why did the paramedics have white gloves on? Well, more than likely, and let me show you on the screen here. Why the Jesus beard on Nip? Yeah, I noticed he didn't always have that beard. Okay, so here we're looking at the guys with the hard hats, and then the guy here is doing chest compressions while they're moving. And I looked into it, and that's not really standard. Usually, you have to be over the person, straddling them. And this guy's on the side, more or less just spanking the guy's chest. I mean, there's not a lot of leverage there, not a lot of force. I don't believe he could actually be pressing down on the guy's rib cage the way he's doing it at that angle. Sexy Tess 45 says his knee twisted like a rag doll while they're doing CPR to turn the body to the side. And also one hand chest compression when they were putting him in the ambulance. Yeah, exactly. The one hand chest compressions. Yeah, this is a great point. For all those out there who are still weeping about this, all they did was they killed his character. His act was done. Kind of like when you die in a movie. He died in a movie, not in real life. You can cry if it moved you, but when you leave the movie theater, you don't tell anybody. You just cried your eyes out. And this is what they've done on purpose. And the CIA said this. They said, "We will know our work is done when everything the American public believes is false." And what I mean by that is like right now, you, the American people believe fictions because they're not really paying attention. Yeah, show me the blood. Courtney Smith says, I don't see any blood. See those white gloves? Also, the orange cone is something notable here. We see a lot of orange cones in these events. No SBCA, Nip was not dead. Sorry to have to deliver the great news. Somebody you love and respect isn't dead. Why do people get mad when you tell them that nobody died? You should be thanking me. Where's the blood again? So now here's what we're looking at. Did Nipsey have tattoos on his right arm? I need an image of Nipsey Hussle's right arm. I'm going to do a quick search and see if I can find something. Good question. Why didn't the firemen clean up the supposed blood, anyone? Okay, so I'm looking for images of Nipsey Hussle's right arm. Here we go. Copy image address. Because somebody suggested that this is a dummy. Or if not a dummy, a body double. But whatever the case, you're looking at... No, I'm looking for something to show his right shoulder. I mean, we are looking into this. I'm not jumping to conclusions. We're not connecting dots, but we're just analyzing what we can analyze. And I want to see if that is a dummy or not. It doesn't make a huge difference, but there are enough pictures we should be able to ascertain whether or not that's a real. But one of the things we were looking at was the white gloves. Wave says, dude, best coverage about this. Hey, thanks. Hey, we're working on something here. So if you have anything we've missed, drop it here in the comment section, and we're going to include it in our final analysis here. The Art of War says the Tupac shooting fake too. Oh, yeah. No doubt. Okay, here's a picture. Let's see if he's any tattoos. Okay, he's got tattoos on his forearm. Thanks for letting me know. Iceberg Wilson says, if you don't study Freemasonry or symbolism, you're out here blind. Well, exactly. It's a language. It's a language of symbols and signs and different ways of communicating that if you're not in the know, you wouldn't be able to really know what they were about. Now, if somebody says there's too many mods, the reason why we have mods here, wrenches, is so you can post links if you find anything. DJ Stark says, once the contract is signed, you're property of the elites. They control everything about the way you live and die. Nothing you could have done about it. Yeah, in many ways, that's what we're looking at here is a character. A character that dies. Like David Bowie faked his death. Very easy to see. So the character had his life on stage, and then had a staged death. I wouldn't be surprised if it's more common than you think with even certain, we'll say, World Wrestling Federation types. But really, what we're talking about here is the PSYOP industrial complex. The PSYOP industrial complex, it's what I'm calling this, which is the use of the media to grow governmental power and to advance the goals of what is the military industrial complex. Like, so before you get people to go to war, you have to have provocations, you have to have propaganda, you have to hype them up for it. So how do you get people on board with something? Well, you use emotionally manipulative psychological operations, psychodramas, things to push people over thresholds. Yep, that's someone else points out they had firefighters as paramedics. Yeah, that was kind of strange looking, wasn't it? The guys with the hard hats and the yellow vests. It's Hussein says, why would he fake his death? Just curious. For the same reason that every other crisis actor fakes what they're doing. It's part of a it's part of a propaganda film, and the propaganda has an objective. Yeah, his grandmother's interview where she talks about how he called her to say, "Oh man, I was shot in the head. I won't be home. Won't be there for Mother's Day," or whatever he freaking said. It didn't happen. He didn't. You didn't see it in the video. He didn't get on the phone and talk after he was shot in the head. Okay, Ari1234 says, "I'm pissed. I've been crying for a week now. I know it's fake." Well, look, this is what I mean. If you believe what the news is telling you, you're gonna be triggered. They will trigger you to respond in a certain way. And so the way you inoculate against an emotional manipulator, like let's say you know someone who can play on your emotions to get their way, you have to insulate yourself against it by realizing I'm dealing with a manipulator. Well, guess what? The media is a manipulator. And PMZ gotcha. And now you can be on guard because you really have to be. These are not done for your entertainment, they're done for your enslavement. Okay, so let me take I'm going to post another picture here. This is one of the initial crisis actors. Those of you who looked into crisis actors, you'll recognize this one. She's made appearances at multiple events. Okay, let's see. Yeah, fire truck, exactly. Okay, so is this for gun control and martial law, says the Art of War? Absolutely, I would say so. Martial law, police state. Remember, this guy was about to meet the chief of police. How much sense does that make? Somebody who has a certain look on life, member of a gang, gangster rapper, or bankster rapper, if you want to know who they really work for. These bankster rappers. He's going to go meet with the chief of police to talk about gang violence. What's the end game? The end game would be totalitarianism, taking away your property. They have a war on capitalism. They have a war on owning anything, and they control that anyway. We don't even have pure capitalism. So, yeah, it's about slavery. It's about taking away your freedom of speech, and that's not hyperbole. Less than a month ago, they managed to make great headway in silencing free speech, not only on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, but they've shut down alternative sites that we were using like BitChute and LiveLeak. Sites where you go to talk about things you can't talk about on YouTube. Rough207 says, why does the guy in the police car have a bald haircut and the guy in court has hair? Thank you for bringing that up. It's like the fourth person to bring it up, that the Eric Holders don't match. D. Allen Rick says, did anybody hear gunshots that day? Check Twitter. See if somebody tweeted that they heard a pop, pop, pop. They always reference Twitter like that too. Yeah, bankster rappers is a term I got from Miles Mathis. When is the Wake funeral? I think tickets go on sale tomorrow. It's going to be at the Staples Center. We'll be analyzing that. And it is fascinating to me that the suspect's name, Eric Holder, is like the former Attorney General, brain, really the mastermind, the brain behind the mass shooter generation in 17 years of scripted fake school shootings. And you know why they do those? The reason why they fake school shootings is so they have an excuse to do school shooting drills. And you know why they do those? They do those because school shooting drills are a great way to terrorize kids. You realize that? In your public schools, if they do school shooter drills, hyper realistic school shooter drills, they're actually terrorizing the kids as students, putting them under the desks, duck and cover, teaching them to be afraid of the classmates, teaching them to snitch, telling them they could die at any minute, having them in these terrorizing drills, even as little kids, 3, 4, 5 years old, hiding under desks. And you have the cops coming in, some of them dressed up like the bad guy, firing blanks. Then you have others pointing guns and then, put your phones down, hands up, out the door. Like, this is all programming. It's to program them to grow up to be like David Hogg, to be against guns, to be good little commies, to love the state. That's what Stockholm Syndrome is. Falling in love with your captor, or defending your captor, because your captor is something that you're very dependent upon. Gene Skirbo says, LA County inmate search, no Eric Holder. Fascinating. Wave says, when he was walking out of the mental institution, he had a dark jumpsuit and a white undershirt. When he's getting to the police car, he has on a red shirt. Show me links. Frank Bainsley says, the biggest song, Hey April Fool. No, Hey Fool. Is that one of his songs? His biggest song is called Hey Fool. April Fool's Day, and his name has parallels with Nipsey Hussle, who's a comedian, jokes. Eric Holder was the joke. Obama's former attorney general. Yeah, that's what we're analyzing here, subtext. And something else with his lyrics. On his lyrics, there was one where he said he's the Tupac of this generation and made an allusion to dying on the concrete on the pavement. Yes, Cooking with Tracy Frazier says this has been going on for years. Yeah, this has been going on since before we were born. Art of War says, what do you think about Chicago violence, mercenaries in black masks? Yeah, I would say that if it's authentic, it's probably, like as in if there were real deaths, yeah, there are real deaths. But if it's being politicized, you're just not going to. I guess here's how it kind of works, I think, is when it comes to analyzing these things. If it's being politicized within like 24 hours, or if it has a political utility like, solving gang violence or silencing free speech, then it's probably fake. The ones you don't hear about are the ones that are just the statistics that don't have any kind of specific utility. I mean, there is real violence, obviously. There is real stuff, but we're just trying to show where there's stuff that's clearly faked. Okay, so that song was called Fool. So that's another interesting layer. I hadn't caught that. Hey Fool. Let's see. Juba Loke says, he did not fake his death. Can you shut up? No, he did fake his death. Can TMZ and the lying media shut up? Can they stop lying for 5 minutes? No, they can't. New Life Mickey Gaming says, one shoe off, which is Masonic. Yes, that's correct. Tupac had a song called To Live and Die in LA. Fitness God says, I'm from Chicago. Most of the stuff's real. Shady stuff going on. Sure. Well, the thing is, it's a political football. You always hear right wingers act like they care about people in Chicago. And they're like, oh, well, 30 more people died in Chicago. And it's a gun free zone. There you go, Democrats. It's this argument that they love to make political points off of the dead. Tupac died in Las Vegas. Okay, that's correct. Continue. Locked and Loaded says he did fake it. Yes, he did. NorCal Finest says Nipsey's dead. No, the character is dead. So yeah, actually you're right. Like David Bowie's dead. But the individual who played that character is not dead. They just leave the world stage, the Globe Theater. And the Masonic stagehands tend to leave calling cards. Curtis Oliver said, I just saw the Prince death scene. What the fuck? He's laying perfect in his cape, perfectly laid out. Yeah, I'm telling you, these people are narcissists. They stage their deaths. Just like, look at the death scene afterwards, and you'll see one where right where Nipsey supposedly died, you see a bullet shell and you see a black hat, which is probably a symbol, and then you see some bloody gloves. Lone Wolf says attention is currency. Exactly. That's the point here. The fact that this guy's got OJ's attorney, like, you can't tell me that's not for ratings. They do this for ratings. If it bleeds, it leads. Art of War says Chicago violence is all about organ harvesting. Austin Hayes says, do you think this is a distraction? Well, it is a distraction, but a distraction from what? Well, it's a distraction from reality. People say, oh, it's a distraction. You should focus on this news issue or that news issue. It's like, no, media exit. Like, really, stop taking any of it seriously. It's all distraction. This is the bread and circuses. Sierra says, why don't they use blood for these fake crime scenes? Yeah, good question. I mean, they had people there trampling all over the evidence. Okay, let's continue. Oh, running game on you, marathon. Interesting. The song with him and the game is called Judas Closet. Lickety Split says Prince faked his death for altruistic reasons. Okay, To the Kingdom says keep telling people. Oh, listen to this. Nation of Islam all of a sudden popped up, letting people into the parking lot for a candlelight vigil. That's fascinating. I was curious about that. Who's going to jump on this? Somebody says rip Nipsey Hussle. Well, he's not dead. Rip critical thinking for America, for the world. Rip free thinking when all your thoughts are going to be curated. They may not control your every individual thought, but they will curate your options. So you're very limited on what you can think. Shannon says Nipsey is dead. Those who killed him are the puppet masters. Nope, not at all. You're being played. Not only is he not dead, but he is part of the scene. He's one of the puppet masters. Okay, I'm looking at the comments. We'll see if anybody else has anything new. This guy says this guy was never in the hood. Nobody knows him. It's propaganda. Don't know about that. I mean, we don't know how much of this is totally scripted, though. I mean, have you seen those videos of Tupac when he's like 17 or 18? Like, he doesn't look like all that tough. I mean, quite the opposite. It's like, is this all an act? He was a theater guy. He was into Shakespeare. So you think Tupac Shakur, Shakespeare, ballet, and then he suddenly changes or something. Okay, let's see what else. Tiffany Frey says, how come you don't hear anything about the other two people that were shot? Good question. Art of War says TMZ works for the CIA and the FBI. Yeah, a number of people have been saying that. You could just really extend that to pretty much, for all intents and purposes, the mainstream media has all been under the control of the CIA. It's called Project Mockingbird. And it's not just the mainstream media, it's the alternative news, and it's many, many of the conspiracy theorists, even here on YouTube. The really big YouTube channels are very suspect, and if you can actually tell them apart pretty easily from the real, based on whether or not they're protecting MSM storylines. To the Kingdom says Nation of Islam and FBI did a COINTELPRO hit op on Malcolm X. Art of War says, how can Eric Holder afford O.J. Simpson's former defense attorney? Great question. Great question. So this is the third video we've done on this topic. And what I'm going to do here is take a lot of this information, and we're going to put all of our findings together and release something a little more concise, maybe like 30 to 45 minutes, and cover all the points. There's a lot to cover, obviously. When all these celebrities, quote, die, they go to Dubai, says one commenter. Interesting. Who was the person who took a pic of Nip lying on the ground standing behind the police? Interesting question. Yeah, when you look at how staged these things are, you have to ask yourself, well, where were they standing? I mean, take for example the Orlando shooting. You remember the Orlando shooting? In that one, you see these people carrying bodies out. But if you actually analyze it and you look at Google Earth, you can see where the cameraman was. And where they were tells you that the victims were being carried in the opposite direction they should have been going. Not to mention 300 people at a disco, but only 7 cars in the parking lot. We've seen many of these staged events, and this one is low budget and very easy to see through. Someone's asking, where's the blood? The psyops are getting more obvious. Yeah, if you have anything else, please drop it now. Nipsey's a puppet for the Illuminati, not in it. Thank you. Okay, I'm reading through these comments. You guys have anything else? There's quite a lot, like literally 1,000 comments here, and most of these people who are observing this thing are coming to the same conclusions. Art of War says Eric Holder was in witness protection, dropped off at the mental hospital, it seems, and picked up by the LA sheriff. Hmm. So he may, yeah, could be. There really aren't patsies. See, if you think it's a false flag, then you're going to be inclined to think that there was a patsy, and the mental home thing or the mental hospital thing totally fits with that theory. Yeah, 300 people at the disco in Orlando and only 7 cars in the parking lot. Like, I don't know if the people going to that place had special clown cars, like special clown cars for gay people where they can fit 60 in a car. I don't think so. Like the thing was staged. It was a drill. There weren't that many people there. And one of the things they often do is they exaggerate the number of people that were there. And you look at the footage and you're like, where are all the people? There weren't 5,000 people at Parkland. Kelly B says, this reminds me of Tupac all over. Well, one of his song lyrics says that he's the quote, Tupac of this generation. We'll see if this is a lead. Somebody just posted a picture of one of the firemen pushing what could be a training dummy with one sock on, 1 foot off, and 1 foot bare. Cunningham. Commenter says he's not fake. He's really dead. It says white people don't believe if a non-white person dies. Not at all. Most of the psyops we analyze are, well, I mean, it's not based on race. Not at all. And we've been analyzing these things for years. We don't discriminate. If it's fake, if it's agitprop, if it's a psyop, if it's shady, if there's something sketchy about it, we're going to take it apart. We've been doing this for a long time. Everyone says the new Tupac. Hey, one of the crisis actors said he was like Tupac. Another crisis actor said he's a god. Joe Citizen says Trump was in LA at the same time as the death. Yeah, well, Trump's another reality TV show. His TV show never ended. Nipsey lives on Mars doing Prince's nails. Cherry Girl says, have they mentioned what kind of gun it was yet? I haven't heard them say. We haven't heard yet. I'll check it out. See, that's something else too. If this was a gun grabber event, they would be telling you what kind of weapons were used. There'd be multiple versions. They would have like a car full of weapons. They list all the ones that the politicians want to ban. So you know this isn't about guns specifically. Probably more about just gang violence. Rough 207 says, just before they put him in the ambulance, look at his right foot. It looks wired. Intel Pick says, there's no white people in this. The psyop is to keep people separated. Yeah, there's demographic considerations here. Like, why was this one being marketed through Twitter and through TMZ and through YouTube, whereas the other ones get fed to you through Facebook? I'm sorry, through Fox or CNN. Like this here, this event, this is target marketed propaganda. They have their target market groups that they're aiming for. Robert Ellison says all the psyops are done badly. They're meant to be uncovered. Most still believe, even if it's proven fake. Yeah, that's a valid point. The problem here is that even if you see something that you determine to be fake, let's say JFK or any of these conspiracies, it doesn't matter if 99% of the people think it's real. And that's why I think it's important to call these things out. Because if you don't, then fake trumps real. People bearing false witness, liars, manipulators. Frank Bainsley says Tupac's last studio album when he was alive was All Eyes on Me, and the background of the album is the same as Nipsey's album Victory Lap. Thank you. That's a good one. Appreciate the comments. Again, Tupac's last studio album when he was alive, All Eyes on Me, the background of the album is the same as Nipsey's last album. Nipsey's been wearing a Tupac shirt, calls himself the Tupac of this generation. All news on Nipsey broke on TMZ. Yeah, okay, for example, if there's a terror attack, the right wing is going to cover it to death, ad nauseum. The left wing is going to ignore it. If there's a school shooting, the left wing is going to cover it ad nauseum, and the right wing is going to downplay it. So these things are very specific. They're always very targeted. These are operations meant to influence specific people. And so this was meant for the consumers of TMZ. This is brought to you by your government entertainment media complex. When you watch them actually pull this gurney out, the tape's already in place, and they have to like have somebody lift up the tape so they can go past it. Yeah, if anybody sees any blood, show us some pics. If you see any crisis actors with tears, show us some pictures. Nipsey's biting off Pac. Somebody says JFK's wife shot him under the neck. There are some people who are looking into the Zapruder film regarding JFK and are concluding that you can't really even determine if this was actually a live event like that. Like it does look like a splice. I mean, there's a lot there. Yeah, there's a really good article on Tupac, and we'll be examining Tupac's supposed death along with this one. The main point here, though, is the ones who brought you the hoax would love for you to spend all day debating on who killed him. They don't want you to say or to notice that nobody died. They don't want you to go there. Your rule should be, and this is just logic, your rule should be it's fake until proven real. Now, if you want to say that this is real based on the evidence you've seen, I'm going to say that you're reality impaired and media illiterate. You're ignorant and you're a fool and you're a fake enabler. DJ Stark says, how will the fans feel when they find out Eric is going to beat the Chargers? It's all for division. Yeah, hey, I'm glad you said that. Because if it happens, we can reference this. Nothing on his head when they put him in the ambulance. Good point. Again, this isn't conspiracy theory. This is propaganda analysis. This is media analysis. Backup says this is classic Machiavelli, no doubt. And one of his axioms, Machiavelli, one of his statements was, never do by force what you can accomplish by deception. And if you don't have to kill people to mobilize the masses, if you don't have to actually do the atrocities, if you can fake it with deception, why wouldn't you? It's cheaper. And then it doesn't become a mass murder. It doesn't become a crime against humanity. It doesn't become a war crime. It's just an act. It's just a lie. I haven't looked very much into Laura London. There's some interesting connection between her movie ATL, the date being March 31st. New Life says there's pictures of Tupac as a child holding up a 666 hand sign just like Michael Jackson. Yeah, the 666 means the sun. It means light, Masonic light. So when you see these people holding the AOK symbol over an eye, that's the all-seeing eye. That's the all-seeing eye of the Illuminati, the illuminated ones. And the 666 is a sun god thing. It references the sun, which is light. The master of the Masonic Lodge wears a big sun on his chest, and he's considered to be the sun. And then the junior warden's the moon. It's all based on this idea of sun worship. Just like the Pope is a stand in for the sun god, every king is a divine stand in for the god. Alan Ricks TV says the man who designed the cover art for Tupac Kill Illuminati album says Tupac was involved in every detail of the artwork, named his album 7 Day Theory. So he knew he had lived 7 days. Yeah, very scripted. This is a scripted reality. In Christ says there's no hole in his forehead, no blood, very strange. To the kingdom, TMZ reported he spoke to the shooter after being shot. You shot me, you got me, I'm good. Thanks for bringing that up. TMZ did report a few things. They reported that he had an IV, that he was on oxygen as they wheeled him out. No, he wasn't. They said he told the shooter, you shot me, you got me, I'm good. How do we know? How do they know? Laura London has a new movie coming out. Yeah, somebody said there may be something here in the subtext having to do with London, Laura London, the marathon, and the London Marathon. Who knows? Back You Up and All says Ishtar, the sun goddess. Well, we're close to Easter, and of course that's the time of the sun god's death and resurrection. Easter is Ishtar, a reference to the goddess. Hey, good point here. Jones says, if your family member is taking their last breath, wouldn't you ride in the ambulance? Yeah, they just threw him in there and slammed the door. And it looked like the Three Stooges. Like those guys were bumping into each other. Okay, thank you. Dat1 says 13 years to the date that 8. Okay, 13. Remember, 13 means death. In Tarot, 13 is we often see it associated with death. And so 13 years to the date that the movie ATL dropped on 3/31/06. So Nipsey dies on 3/31/19. Kind of like the Twin Towers were hit 33 years after they started the construction in 1968. Which makes me wonder too, if you didn't know, the space station is still up there, supposedly, and the Challenger exploded 33 years ago. And I wonder, as you examine the scripted reality, we're always looking like, hey, what else could they be planning? Rosita says her counterpart in the movie looks like Nipsey. Fascinating. Reasons for it all. Like I said, this is the blending of fiction and reality. They do it with the sciences. People wouldn't believe 99% of the stuff they hear from NASA if they recognized how much of it was based on pseudoscience, but they don't recognize pseudoscience because they're presented with science fiction that makes these things seem possible or realistic. There's manipulation on all fronts, not just with pseudo news events, but also with the way they fake science, the way they distort our histories. Laura London has a show coming out. Interesting. Lilith says, where's the shop's video footage from that day there was a camera outside of his shop? Hey, it was a smart shop, had hundreds of cameras, high-tech shop. What's the deal? Why do we get this footage that's grainy and the people, it looks, well, it's impossible to discern what's actually going on. To the Kingdom says, I'm a huge fan of his music, but this is ridiculous. Far too many things don't add up. Okay, yeah, thank you. Hey, if you're in here and you got something to say, or you have a link to drop, I'll go ahead and hand you a wrench so you can do that. I mean, it's pretty much open forum. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get as much information as we can from just the crowd here. Beauty Love says, look at the second dummy. They brought out a fat guy with a big belly. Looks stiff as hell. Yeah, he wouldn't be that stiff that soon, obviously. I mean, it does take, what, 12 to 24 hours for rigor mortis to set in. Dummies are used all over the place with many of these events. Okay, Joe Citizen, sorry to say, but We're not banning people indiscriminately here. Okay, Lean Dion says, I heard you talking about lanyards. I saw them on actors in the nudes. Yeah, in many of these events, you do see it appears to be a drill, a mass casualty drill. And at mass casualty drills, you do tend to see things like other things that identify people bracelets, lanyards. Interesting. The key is pseudocide, not technically illegal unless you're doing it to commit a crime. Yeah, look, fake news or propaganda is legal in America. Re-up says, so you're telling me nobody around the scene had a gun? Good. Yeah, exactly. Where was his bodyguard? Good points. Many times with these events, what is going to reveal it is not what they show you, which is always going to be carefully contrived in order to fool you. What they will do, though, these events, is they will give themselves away in what they don't show you, in what should be there but's conspicuously absent. And one of the things conspicuously absent here is, well, where's the bodyguards? Where's the people returning fire? Were there any bullet holes in his body? Didn't see anything. No blood. No blood on the white gloves of the firemen with the hard hats. His cowboy friend had no blood on his t-shirt. I want to know how he called his grandma after getting shot in the head. Joined by Chief Crow and the Flat Earth Worms. Good to see you here. Somebody put a link to the expo. So someone here had mentioned what needs to happen is a lot of people need to get together in one place and discuss these things. Like these are like, and it's true. Like what happens here is this: you get fake news, and it doesn't get challenged by enough people. And then another day of fake news, another day of fake news. That becomes fake history. And who writes the history? Well, the elite. They edit us out of it. So it's important to call these things out early on and definitively. So it doesn't become a part of your narrative. So your reality doesn't become compromised by the state's false reality, the one they impose over the blind faith believers to manipulate them. Private Eye says there's Marathon gas stations where I live in the South, and guess who owns them? Not saying he was one of them, but he looks related. He's saying he's Arab. Interesting. Hey, nothing surprises me. I don't take anything for granted. I just go off of the information provided. It's fake until proven real. Burden of proof's not on me. Oh, yeah, anyway, there is an expo in Las Vegas in May where a lot of different conspiracy related things will be discussed. And one of the things will be fake celebrity deaths, including this one, which will be discussed in front of a live audience. It's Escape the Matrix 2019. There's a link right there. If you're in Las Vegas, you're going to want to go. I'll put a promo up on my channel because even if you can't go, you're going to want to watch the live stream of the event. It'll be the first time that many of these things have been talked about openly in public. Kylie Lee says, how did he call his grandma? Good call. Beauty Love says, listen to Judas Closet by Nipsey and the Game. Yeah, please post links. If you got lyrics, post them. Somebody found lyrics here where he called himself the Tupac of this generation. Timothy Ryan says, too many people will be asleep and will always be asleep. Well, look, it's kind of ridiculous to see through psyop after psyop and then suddenly think one is real. Like you have people who saw through Sandy Hook, they saw through Parkland, they see through Las Vegas, but then they think Thousand Oaks is real. You see stuff like that. And why would you suspend disbelief? Well, the only reason why you would ever suspend disbelief is because you're not thinking. You're taking a leap of faith. And what would cause you to do that? Peer pressure. You're emotionally triggered. And that's why they do these things so dramatically. They create atrocities so it'll get you to respond emotionally. Keep going. I'm reading your comments. If there's anything else, I'm going through the comments left on my videos because so many people here have been bringing up points that I would have missed. We're crowdsourcing a lot of our information, but we're going to put the most relevant information, the best information, in a concise breakdown that shouldn't take more than 30 or 45 minutes. So subscribe to my channel now, so when I release that, either late tonight or early tomorrow morning, you can watch it and share it, because I think it's important to expose these things real time right away. And don't get bullied by crisis actors or people who have been fooled by the MSM PSYOP industrial complex. That's a term I've been using to describe it. What else can you call it? Everybody knows about the military industrial complex, but you don't get people to go along with war unless you get them agitated first, unless you get them threatened, you take away their security. Austin Hayes says, how come there were no police out there taping the area off? Well, there was tape at one point. Shane Porter says, why can't people just die anymore? Why is every celebrity death considered a hoax? This is what's funny. You call out one of these obvious government controlled agitprop events, and you get people saying, hey, don't give me the good news. I liked it better when they were dead. Like, this is great news if you think about it. And it's great that people are actually seeing through it. I've got 1,000 comments here, and very few people are having trouble accepting that the government uses the entertainment industry to get into the heads of the people that it wants to control. They know that the people who listen to Nipsey don't watch Fox. They know this. Don't you think they know? I mean, you think that they're the people who are engineering these things, like, okay, well, how do we reach this demographic? They don't watch Fox. They don't trust Anderson Cooper. They don't trust any of the alt-right. They don't trust any of the liberals. How do we get these people involved in our agenda to grow the state? Oh, easy. Let's kill one of their idols, one of their icons, and release it through their entertainment news sources like TMZ. The people who are the websites that are actually promoting these artists, that are conduits for this information, for this culture, for this type of material. It's very simple. This was a target marketed event. Somebody said, please research who killed Tupac. I don't even think Tupac is dead. That's the point. It's not a who done it. It's a what is it. And what is it? It's a hoax. And it's a big deal that it's a hoax. It's a bigger deal that it's a hoax than it's a false flag or who done it. It's not a who done it where there's a scapegoat that you're never going to find. Yeah, thanks, Candy B. He's alive. This is good. X says Nipsey's watching this right now. I would like to think that whatever's on the other side of selling out is much better than watching YouTube. I mean, if it's not, if whatever's on the other side doesn't completely distract you from your old life, then it wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough to sell out over. Okay, commenter here says, Nipsey had no security. Just that alone seems too fishy. Yep, good call. Good call. Let's keep going. Yeah, this is all about it's not about entertainment, it's about enslavement. Yeah, Tupac's alive, Prince is alive, David Bowie's alive. Who knows? I mean, some of them are just so suspect. And again, there are things that we brought up on the very first video that were immediately obvious red flags. Don Burr says this is ridiculous. No, what's ridiculous is you, the consumer of fake news, accepting the burden of proof and believing whatever you see on TV. That is, by definition, ridiculous. Okay, like I said, we're going to work on a more concise documentary here. So what I want to do is get to that. So go ahead and subscribe. The next video I upload, probably the very next video that I upload, is going to be a concise breakdown. Shouldn't take more than 30 or 45 minutes for the whole thing. If that. And I appreciate all of you who are leaving comments, who are dropping tips, leads, things that we missed, people dropping lyrics, things worth looking at. Because like I've said before, this is an example of what we call the scripted reality being played out right in front of us. We're catching it real time. The scripted reality doesn't limit itself to school shootings or fake terror attacks. Somebody says Joan Rivers is alive. Yeah, actually, I've seen pictures and it does look like her. I know what you're talking about. Maya White says, when I first saw that, the first thing I thought was movie set. Yeah, no doubt. Okay, Timothy Ryan, thanks for bringing this up. He said John Lennon death was a hoax too. Well, John Lennon was on Jay-Z's t-shirt at the Victory Lap release party. So I'll see you all in a while with the documentary, with a consolidated breakdown of this whole thing. This is Your Reality is Fake as Fuck by MVP, the Hardware Vandal. Thanks for joining. Please subscribe. I'll see you later.
It was like a movie scene. There was gunpowder all on the floor. It was just so real, but it felt so fake.
Your reality is fake as fuck. I don't feel like silencing myself or anybody's feelings. I think the earth is flat. Sandy Hook is a hoax. Nobody died at 9/11. Megan Kelly's a dude. Elvis Jones is Bill Hicks. The space program is fake. And all of the female astronauts are dudes. All of them. They're all trans. Trannies in space. Crisis actors on the ground. Fake 9/11. Q is fake. Trump is fake. Melania is a dude. Joe Rogan's a bitch. Eddie Bravo sucks. Chemtrails are fake. If you believe in chemtrails, you're a fake enabler fool. Nobody died at Sandy Hook. Nobody died at Aurora. Nobody died at Littleton. Nobody died at 9/11. Nobody died at any of the terrorist attacks like Bataclan. Nobody died at Thousand Oaks. Nobody died in Vegas. None of those gay people died at the disco shooting in Orlando. There's no evidence for any of your religious saviors to actually exist. There are no prophecies. There is no end times prophecy. Global warming's a hoax. There's no space junk. There's no satellites. The space station is fake. And like I said earlier, your reality is fake as fuck. It's fake as fuck. It's fake as fuck. We know it's a hoax, we know it's a movie, but they keep talking about how it's the Americans that drink the Russian piss and it's not the other way around. That's the only part I believe. Out of all of it, the only part I believe is that those American astronauts are actually drinking Russian piss. That's the only part I find remotely believable. Alright, it's been 12 minutes. Let me go ahead and delete this.